who were with him. All the king's servants who were with the king at the gate bowed down and paid homage to Haman, so that the king had commanded regarding what the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai neither bowed down nor paid homage. Then the king's servants who were at the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why are you transgressing the king's command?" Now it was that when they had spoken daily to him, he would not listen to them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's reasons would stand, for he told them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai neither bowed down nor paid homage to him, Haman was filled with rage. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him who the people of Mordecai were. Therefore Haman sought to destroy all of the Jews, the people of Mordecai, who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, that is, the lot, was cast before Haman from day to day and from month to month until the 12th month. The month is Adar. Then Haman said to the king Ahasuerus, "There is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all of the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those and all other people, and they do not observe the king's law. So it is not in the king's interest to let them remain. If it is pleasing to the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who carry on the king's business, and put it into the king's treasury." The king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Haggite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, "The silver is yours, and the people also, to do with them as you please." Then the king's scribes were summoned on the 13th day of the first month, and it was written just as Haman commanded, to the king's satraps, to the governors, who were over each of the provinces, and to the princes of each people, each province according to its script, each people according to its language, being written in the name of the king Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's signet ring. Letters were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces to destroy and kill and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to seize their possessions as plunder. A copy of the edict was issued as law in every province, and it was published to all the people so they could be ready for this day. The couriers went out, impelled by the king's command, while the decrees were issued in the citadel in Susa, while the king and Haman sat down to drink wine in the city of Susa, as it was in confusion. Amen. You may be seated. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the great country singer and songwriter Roger Miller, King of the Road. Anybody? Trailers for sale. Roger had a song that's probably one of my favorites. It's called Dang Me. You might know that song. Dang Me, right? Roses are red, violets are purple, sugar sweet, so's maple syrup. I'm the seventh of a seventh son. That's my baby was the best one. I'm the son of a gun. You know that song? No. And so the chorus says, well, dang me, they ought to take a rope and hang me high from the highest tree. Woman, would you weep for me? And then he would do. You ever have one of those days when you feel like everything was going your way and then it stops? It goes a different way. That's where we are in the book of Esther. Now, Ahasuerus reigned over these 127 provinces in virtually 21 years. When we arrive on the scene, he had been king for 3 years. As we're reading through, 12 years have already passed. At the end of the time, when Esther had already been made queen, all this other stuff had happened, they had been having a fairly good run of things. Esther still hadn't made herself known as to who her people were. Things were happening, but in that short span, we have 12 years that pass, and everything seems to be going well. And as it's going well, something happens and something breaks. You may think that life's taking a break from beating you down, and then all of a sudden, bam! Fun time to get started. You ever just take a moment and just say, where, that's not the right one. Why do you feel like today, and you place whatever emotional state you're in at the moment in there, but why did he not just leave me alone for a little while today? why can I not just have a break today? Why can't you not just, the chaos is over, right? Chaos is over. Esther's queen. Everything's good, but not so much. We actually had to go back and finish up chapter 2 because this all started in chapter 2. We had all these little bits of chaos that didn't make any sense, and we thought everything was kind of calming down, but it's not calming down. As a matter of fact, it's getting ready to get set on fire a lot worse. We get to this point, we have a weird party, we have a really odd time for a beauty pageant. Now we've got a new king, and so as we hit the end of chapter 2, we get slapped right in the face with a dang me moment. Why is this happening now? Right across the face, we learn this truth. Life and pain are synonymous. Now, if you did not know that, or you were going to one of those churches that doesn't ever tell you that, I'm sorry, but I want to tell you the truth today. Life and pain, they go hand in hand. They're a package deal. How many of you like package deals? Right? We're the making a meal group, right? That didn't even exist so many years ago. And now you can make it a deal, and now you can upsize everything. You get everything. You get life and a free drink. Sometimes you need that, right? To go with it. What could be better than to have everything and that in one entity? Because that's the point. You can't have one without the other. You don't get to get pain and not life. You don't get to get life without pain. They exist simultaneously in our universe. And if you would like to add to your wonderful bumper sticker collection, how about this one? Pain is inevitable. Misery is optional. That's the choice we have to make. Pain's going to happen. Pain of some sort, of some kind, or many kinds, depending on who you are and what kind of magnet you are, it's happening to all of us. What are we going to do about it? Ben Franklin said this, and I know a lot of times those people say something, they just be quiet, give me $100. But he said this: those things that hurt instruct. How many of you can say you've learned a lot of good lessons from your pain? How many of you didn't even think about that until now, and now you're just mad that now you were hurt and didn't learn anything? As we get into this today, we're going to be confronted with something that I know you all know exists, and I hate to bring it up again because we bring it up a lot, but it needs to be brought up a lot, but because we somehow forget. But evil exists, and we're confronted with it again in this text today. I was told by a Bible teacher many years ago, you don't have to speak topically. You just read the Bible and everything's going to pop up. At some point, you're going to read across something that's happening already. You don't have to go pick and choose. There's stuff there. Evil's real. And sometimes it's sitting right outside the gate. That's where it was the day it reared its head here. It was just sitting there, waiting outside. Ours can come from outside. Ours can come from inside. It can come from the past. One of the things you and I need to remember is that suffering is a constant dynamic of our life. The repeated theme. So is evil. Evil is a constant theme in the world. Now, as we referenced at the end of last week, there's a tapestry being woven in our lives. And when we closed last week, we referenced that the underside of the weaving is bumpy, it's rough, it's ugly, but the top side is beautiful. Both of those things have to happen at the same time. The beauty cannot be done without the ugly. Don't point to your neighbor on that. But that's what happens, right? How many of you are in here who sew? So Stacy used to make quilts, and it takes forever, don't it? They sew. But it was a beautiful thing when she got done with it, She'd get done with the quilt and she would give it as a gift. And I would probably make the mistake of putting the bad side out. You see all the little extras, all the little things that should have been done. Man, you flip that thing over, it's unbelievable. The artwork is incredible. But there's a lot of rough stuff going on underneath. When we have pain, we need to remember that pain can leave us with a promise. The promise that we can't see on the other side of that tapestry, that there's life, there's hope, there's something amazing on the other side. We have to flip it over. Sometimes we tend to forget that. Hurt once we see the beauty. Stacy would get done with a quilt and she would begin to buy stuff for another one. Jeff Foxworthy said, I'm going to quote a lot of theologians today. Roger Miller, Jeff Foxworthy. Jeff Foxworthy said that something awesome happens after a woman has a baby. After all the hurt, after all the pain, after all the stuff, she will eventually come around and say, you know what, I think I'm ready. Because how many times have you heard a man say that about a kidney stone? Never. You don't ever get done with that. And you start walking and you can't anymore. It's in the middle of nowhere. You don't say, you know what? That was so much fun. Let's do that again. Because we don't. We have the difficulty most of the time, especially with the pain that doesn't have a promise on the other side of it. Promise of a beautiful child on the other side that blesses your life and changes your life, that's something. But a promise of a little edged rock that does nothing to make you think you're going to die and want to kill everybody in between, that's different. The beauty of the finished work can cause us to move forward, march right back into suffering again, because we understand what's coming on the other side of it. Can you and I do that today? Can we look at the world that we live in and say, you know what, I understand there's a lot of pain here, but God has a promise if I go through it. Romans 5, 3 and 4. Not only this, but we also need to go in our tribulation. Knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance. And perseverance, proven character, and proven character, hope. Think about that. And as you and I start with pain, it's a building process. Things come into our life not only to teach us, but to change us and make us something better. But if we're not willing to endure what that pain is teaching us, then we lose out on all of it. Paul tells them we're learning. When your life is like this chapter that we just read, and you want to say, dang, this account, much like our world, is rife with abuse. Sometimes we don't see all of it because we don't know all the story, but you and I know the story. So we understand there's abuse, there's violence, there's hatred, there's prejudice in this story. And you can't get away from the evil that's in this world. You and I want to do that all the time, right? We want to hide out from the evil, but I don't think that's what we're called to do. As with sin, evil is an inescapable of the reality of so many other things in life. Evil, like sin, is always there. It's always lurking in the shadow. Always wanting to quickly invade your life and bring pain, to violate, to annihilate. Even when you feel things are all right now, peaceful right now, evil is just crouching behind the door. That's what God said to Cain. Genesis 4, he says, if you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you. But you have to master it. Sin wants to kill you. Sin wants to destroy you, but you have to stand up and do something about it. The reason our society is evil is because of evil. It's not so much somebody else's fault either. Most of the time, it's the fault of the people who don't do anything about the evil. Why evil persists. Struggle for us, and then sin is a universal disease, and you and I live in the backwash. I remember when our boys were little, and they would say, can I have a drink? I didn't bring anything. Can I have a drink of yours? You remember the first time we had Sprite? First time Sammy drank afterwards? The first and the last. Have you ever been in that spot?
Mm-hmm.
You had a kid take a drink of your drink and then you pull it back and there's stuff living in there. I mean, you remember the old 70s promo ad, you're a young man.
Yeah.
Because you don't brush. You might remember that?
Mm-hmm.
There were so many floating things in that we were like, those kids didn't use mouthwash, they used our Sprite. Sprite was the great illuminator then. Now it's this life that should be the great illuminator. This world that we live in is full of filth and disgust. And you're just living in the backwash of it. I'm living in the backwash of it. What am I going to do about it? Because everything that sin gets on, it contaminates. Everything it gets on, it touches and it leaves it bad. Leaves it nasty. Sin destroys partnerships in business. Sin ruins marriages, it splits churches. It prompts wicked thoughts, therefore it prompts wicked plans. Sin dissolves lifelong friendships that nothing could break until that one day. Sin paralyzes growth and shattered grief. Everything. You may say you don't have a lot on you, but I want to tell you, you let somebody else in the car drink your bottle of Sprite after you go to Taco Bell in a little while. And then you take it and you hold it up to the light. How much more are you going to drink of that?
None.
None, because in our world, a little contamination we don't want in our body. We purify purified water in this culture. We've got problems. We double lock cars. We have issues, but yet when it comes to the sin of the world, we're like, I'll wait in for a little while. Even in the fairy tale life that is Esther, sin rears its ugly head in chapter 2. It distorts everything that is beautiful. That's one of the main pictures, right, of Vashti and of Esther, is the beauty. And yet sin comes in and takes the beauty of Vashti and turns everything on its head. And now we have the beauty of Esther. We have sin again. We see in here that people don't live happy together. See in here that makes world. When what is the purpose of such a story? If we don't have happily ever after, what's the purpose of our story? What's the purpose of thriving in chaos if happily ever after is not real? You have a beautiful exiled orphan girl who is raised to the pinnacle of power. Why? Why if she's not going to turn Xerxes into a nice, sweet Prince Charming of some sort, and they're going to ride off into the sunset, we never hear about it again, then what's the purpose if that's not the purpose of the story? Well, God's not walls. Somebody else. He's not telling you some made-up fairy tale. He's telling you the truth. So if he's telling you the truth, maybe he's wanting you to learn a lesson so that you can make some changes like Esther did. Maybe her story was never meant to be fairy tale. Maybe her story, or our story, is rather a tale of the warrior. Maybe her story is a tale of answering the call of God and standing up against evil, even if you have to do it all right. Nobody else stands with you. Nobody else can. If you're the only one. Ecclesiastes 3:8. There is a time to love, and there is a time to hate. Now, that's the Bible. The time to love and a time to hate. There is a time for war and a time for peace. There's a time for everything, but what is going on in your life right now? What time is it? We'll talk about that next week. I know it's always a time for answering his call. Always a time for being obedient to him. As we see in our text today, we have two different driving forces of evil. Both of them are very stressful. Both of them involve, both of them at play the theme of our chaos. But also at play is how do we thrive, how do we grow, how do we rise above our chaos? Because our world is chaos. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
We are in. You like it? I'm going to get a gavel when I'm done with this. This is good. But anyway, sorry, I digress. Without question, our world is chaos. How can you and I thrive when we're literally attacked on every side? If you're not attacked on every side, they can tell you just have to realize together. And if you're so busy on the front, maybe the stuff at the back of the car, or the left on the side, or whatever, you're being attacked on the side. What are we going to see? How are we going to see those answers come today? Well, first we'll look at problem number one, evil number one, and we're going to call that one tit for tat. Bigthan and Teresh, the king's officials who guarded the door and sought to lay hands on the king. How many of you know that small people do small things? I'm not small, I'm not talking about on the outside. I get the idea from reading just the name Bigthan. Sounds like a big guy. That might be the thing you call a big guy, little Tony. I don't know, maybe backwards, but Teresh, do they sound like thugs to you? They sound like thugs to me. They're mad. We don't even know when they're mad. They're just sitting outside there. They guard the king's door. They get mad. And it's not because, I'm not trying to say small people do small things. It's not a vertically challenged issue. I'm just talking about small in heart, small in vision, that kind of small meanness. Because when you're small in heart, small in spirit, small in vision, you don't look far beyond this. You just see what's aggravating you. And we have these fellows. Our first glimpse of evil here in this story, you check out their names, Bigthan and Teresh. So our text said that in those days, while Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, of the king's officials, from those who guarded the door, became angry, and so they sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the purpose was to assassinate him. That's what they were going to do. So in those days, when the king was throwing parties, everyone seemed satisfied. Everybody got what they wanted to get. We have two guys guarding the door. They get mad, and now all of a sudden they want to kill him. Again, we don't know why. We don't know what happened. I have my theory, and I can tell you that later if you want to know. But it's just fun. And all this stuff's going on. These guys are like, we're just going to kill him. This is the perfect example of what happens when evil goes unchecked. Two guys just sitting around talking, and nobody intervenes and says, you know what? You guys are dumb. Don't try to kill the king. Something bad's going to happen to you. Nobody intervened in that spot. You've seen it in your workplace. You've seen it in your lunchroom at school. You've seen it at your old church, or probably worse yet, you've seen it in your own heart. Where you've turned because of small thoughts and small visions, and you've turned inward, and now you can only think about hurting the people. Our unchecked offense. We don't even know what the offense was, yet it grows into anger so bad, it festers so much, it leads to rage, into attempted murder. And nobody even knows it. Not enough to write it down. Anger poisons the mind, and it can make you irrational. I want to read something. Were we able to find this from the new Revised Standard Version? Okay. Proverbs 19:11. Those with good sense are slow to anger, and it is to their glory to, everybody say it with me, overlook an offense. How many of you are good at that? Your head bowed, your eye closed. One of you. I might have seen another hand, but two of you. Really? Mm-hmm. We got one telling the truth and one I'm not so sure about. Now remember this. Remember this as we go on here. The smaller the evil that we're talking about here. This story, this is the worst evil yet. We don't even got the big evil. Everything that happened in those days was much like the lives of an influencer. Everything that happened around him, the king had somebody following him around going, King Xerxes had Wheaties for breakfast. King Xerxes, here's my drawing of the fruit that they brought him from whatever country. King Xerxes yawned today at 9:15 a.m. That's what was going on. He had somebody write down everything that happened. Well, they had a guy writing down what happened to him and that these two thugs tried to kill him. How did he find out about it? Well, the guy wrote it down. Is that Mordecai found out about the plot because Esther heard about the plot. And then she goes, or Mordecai found out about it. He told Esther. Esther goes and tells the king, and she tells him in Mordecai's name. So they're able to thwart the plot to kill the king. The thugs were hanged. And just remember, when we talk about hanging in the book of Esther, we're not talking about a noose around the neck. We're talking about impaling on a big pole out in the main courtyard. It's way more painful, way worse situations. The plot's uncovered, everything's made known. They get impaled, and all of that will come up again later. But somebody's sitting there writing all of down. How many of you have ever you need to remember this. Our attempts to eradicate evil on our own are oftentimes ineffective. Our attempts to eradicate evil on our own are oftentimes ineffective. Have you ever tried to slap evil when you knew you probably should have stabbed it and killed it in your life? Am I being too vague? I don't want to get any too deeper with this yet. But how would you rate the effectiveness of the tactic of,
Uh-oh.
put your hand out. Don't do that anymore. I think we would rate that as a highly effective tactic. Especially if you don't listen. It's not an effective tactic ever. That's what we do with a lot of the sin that we encounter and a lot of the evil in our life. We just slap it away and go, you quit, don't do that anymore. I don't know about you, but if I wave a fly swatter at a fly, I'm not content. I want his guts smushed through that plastic. Anybody? Can I get an amen there? Y'all ain't amen much else, but can I get one there? That's how you need to treat evil. It needs to be impaled out in the front for everybody to see it. And so, as we get to this place here where this evil is being brought to the front, if they hadn't done something about it, it would still cause a lot of grief. But we have these two men impaled publicly, and yet still evil not only creeps in from this situation, it takes over the whole country after it gets there. Ephesians 6:13, therefore take up the full armor of God that you may be able to resist evil, able to resist in the evil day, having done everything that you can stand firm. What's the old saying? The only thing necessary for evil to triumph, what? It's for good men to do nothing. We don't do anything about it. I mean, they attacked this right off the bat. The evil came in, and then something happened in their treatment of it. Just wrote it down on the influencer page of the Chronicles of the King of Persia, and then it's, though never mentioned or anything, it just gets kind of passed on. But this thing twists and turns into something else altogether. And that takes us to the second evil thing that happened. We're going to call that one threat level midnight. I remember back after 9/11, some genius in our country developed a color-coded warning system for terrorist threats. Anybody remember that? So if I throw this at you, green, what does that mean? Low. Why? I don't know. Somebody come up to you, walk by you, and your work and go, hey, you better be on your blue today. Blue meant guarded. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Kind of like a beach flag. How many of you know the beach flag system? If it's purple, that means there's dangerous marine life. How many of you did not know that the first couple times you went? We didn't, did we, son? No, we found that meant dangerous jellyfish. Eli found that for us the hard way. But so anyway, so these are the threat levels here. Now, and apparently back in 2011, the office space in front of Africa done spy taking would be called threat level midnight, which I guess means really dangerous because midnight's dark. All right. This next evil thing that happened was threat level midnight. This is pure King Black stuff. Our text reveals that it's worse than an assassination of the king because it's a genocide of the people. In chapter 3, God's people, the Jews, remember God's name's never mentioned, but the Jews themselves are now threatened with annihilation. Since the beginning of time, the devil has tried to destroy the people of God. We're told that in Genesis 3:15, that's going to happen. He said, there's going to be a fight with you guys constantly. Now, eventually, God's people are going to crush your head, meaning his son's going to crush your head, but the devil continues that process over and over again. And God's people, the Jews, they have suffered that time and time again. Time and time, literally as recently as October, they're being attacked. And everybody turns them around. I just want to tell you something. It has been going on since the beginning of their existence. And here it happens in this text again. And what's odd about this story is that Mordecai is the one who saves the king, right? Mordecai is the one that gets the message to Esther. Esther takes it to the king, and she tells him, I got this from my uncle Mordecai. He promotes Haman to the post of basically prime minister. He rewards Haman with what should have been given to Mordecai. And so Mordecai now puts on the robe of the prime minister. He's marching around all over town, wanting everybody to love him and honor him. And so that's where we find ourselves. Mordecai saves the king. Haman gets promoted. How many of you know life's unfair? These are the people of God. Life is unfair. And what can you do about it? So it's not only painful, it's unfair. You do the work, they claim the idea. You do all the stuff to get the assent, and they act like they did something. You create it, they steal it. You benefit from it, they try to take it all the credit for themselves. It just goes on and on. You fought the victory, they claim the trauma. It doesn't matter. Whatever you do, they're going to try to steal it from you. How many of you got somebody like that in your life? Thank you, Chris. Surely it's not talking about anybody. Bad stuff happens. Wrong stuff happens. Life isn't fair. Life isn't fair because of evil. The solutions are we shouldn't let evil be in control. If evil is the reason behind the problem, shouldn't we do something to fight evil? Instead, we go fight the person who's being led by evil. It's a cycle. Listen to what Ephesians 5:16 says, making the most of your time because the days of evil. Oh, wait a minute. God tells me this in the Word several times. I need to be paying more attention. I need to make the most of my time and do things the right way because the world I live in is evil. Right. All Mordecai does to incite this second evil is he will not bow to Haman. Now, he's not bowing to Haman because Haman got promoted, because Mordecai wasn't trying to get promoted. So you might know what Mordecai's doing there. He's watching Esther to protect Esther. She's his adopted daughter. He's not trying to get special favors. He's not mad at Haman for getting the position. He doesn't care. Pay close attention to this. Mordecai could care less about all the attention that Haman's getting. He just wants to protect his daughter, but Haman sees it as a direct assault on his pride. The only reason that Mordecai won't bow to Haman is because of Deuteronomy 5:7. You shall have no other gods before me. That's all. The people said, why are you not bowing? Why will you not bow? Oh, he just won't just bow. And he says, I'm a Jew, I can't. Remember, he doesn't mention God's name, but he mentions God's people's name. I'm a Jew, I can't. If you're a Jew, they know automatically we can't because they only have one God. That's the only God they serve. Oh, do you live your life that way today? Haman's commitment was so strong he couldn't break it, he wouldn't break it. Also, to remember this, that when he told Esther, he said, don't tell anybody what family you're from.
Mm-hmm.
Means more now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hates the Jews so bad. Don't tell them what your family's from. You just go with this project and you keep just going forward. Don't tell them. Haman now, because of this offense that Mordecai did not do to him, Mordecai honored God. Guys, we talked about honoring God this morning. Honoring God, he now gets the ire of Haman. And he says, what I want to do is, I don't want to just lay my hands on Mordecai. I want my hands on all of them. I want to kill all of them. And so he makes a decree, and we said all these different months a while ago, he's making them wait a year before he kills them. He wants them to suffer for an entire year because Mordecai wouldn't bow to him. Evil likes to parade itself. Evil likes to tell you how right it is. Evil likes to torture. It likes to flaunt its fake authority and tell you that it's in the right place and you're in the wrong place because you didn't do what you were supposed to. You're the person with the problem. Reading in 2 Kings, and one of my favorite lines in 2 Kings is, or excuse me, 1 Kings, at the very end of 1 Kings, when Elijah finally comes out and he confronts Ahab, and Ahab goes, oh, finally the trouble of Israel has revealed itself. And Elijah goes, you need to get a mirror, dude. I think that's the translation. I've not been troubling Israel. I'm not the one who married a wicked, evil witch for a queen. I'm not the one that's turned this country on its ear. You are, and you're going to suffer the consequences. Here we are, Haman mad at all this stuff that Mordecai did, and all Mordecai did was honor God. This was an old grudge, too, by the way, just in case you didn't know. Evil's flaunting around, telling how bad you are, all the while doesn't have one foot in hell. It's got both feet in there, and it's trying to drag you down with it. I told you last time that Esther and Mordecai were from the line of Saul. Remember that? They were of the family of Saul, literally from the family of Kish. And we find out now that Haman family was from that era as well. Part of the embarrassment. There was a king that Saul was supposed to kill, the king of the Agagites, and they didn't. They just kept King Agag alive, and they just kept him. They hauled him around a little bit as a showpiece. And this old grudge, this embarrassment that was there, Saul was told by Samuel, kill all the Amalekites, all of them, all the way down to the dust mines in the house. I want everything left of them gone. Nothing left. They're an embarrassment. And King Saul spares Agag. Haman was an Agagite, or an Agagite, excuse me. Agagite. Sound like one got from a cartoon. So Haman was a descendant of that king. Can I tell you guys something else today? I'm going to quote one more for you. Kelly Clarkson's a liar. Listen, I'm not on strong medicine. I don't want you to think that. You know that she said this in a song, what doesn't kill you makes you
Stronger.
What if I did that with the Bible verse? How many of you know if it doesn't kill you, it doesn't make you stronger, it just keeps chasing you harder? Because all you've really done is make it mad. Well, next time you hear Kelly saying it, you just stop her. So sip it. What does it kill you makes you stronger? You have to kill it first. Mordecai and Esther are put in a position now to finish what Saul did. Did you hear me? Mordecai and Esther now have to finish the job that Saul couldn't. Samuel actually came and killed King Agag. But they're suffering the consequences of their families' lack of efficiency in being obedient to the Word of God. I'll leave you with this, 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The created creature, the old things have passed away, behold, the new things have come. Eli, if you want to come here and mount here. Evil grows in an exaggerated manner. If you allow your life to be driven down by pride, superstition, then you come up with some really dumb decisions. Some ridiculous ideas and thoughts. Stupid. Demonic. Xerxes was basking in Haman's flattery. Didn't even know he was condemning his own queen, who he loved. Because he didn't know anything. He let evil rule and reign. He created a bigger problem than they had before. Luckily for us, the true king invaded our polluted world in the person of his son, Jesus Christ. He saw how much evil was in our world, and he still came anyway. He saw how much pain, how much trauma, how much drama, and he knew we couldn't stop it on our own. And because we couldn't stop it on our own, Jesus came and did just that. Life and pain are synonymous, but they don't have to leave us alone. You and I don't have to stay victims of life and pain all our life. We can thrive in the chaos because it's God's power that gives us the ability to thrive. God can turn a person from wickedness to righteousness. God can turn a situation that seems not only unfamiliar, not only undefeatable, but he can turn it in such a way not only does it get defeated, but he grows us through the process. Esther is put in a position, as we see next week, to not only see this stuff, but make a difference like nobody else could. Will she? Choices of her. And as we prepare for that, I'm going to ask you if you stand with me. God's power can switch everything around for you. Will you be like Esther and let it do it? Will you be like Esther and let God change your life? Let's pray your heads, close your eyes. Choice is always ours. You don't want to sit around and be like Roger Miller and hung dangling, take a rope and hang me. This life is so bad I should just give up on it. It wasn't bad, and then it went bad, and then it went from bad to worse, and life and pain are synonymous. Or will I sit back and say, you know what, God can grow me through my pain. He can grow me out of my ancestors' mistakes. He can put me in a place to not only that I grow, but that I thrive. Will I let him do that? And that choice is ours every day. Will I let evil overrule me? Or will I stand, be obedient to him and watch it fall? Will I watch evil fall? Will I watch the plans of the enemy fall? Will I watch my past mistakes fall? Will I watch God do something I could even dream of? Sit back and fall. Just do the things he says. I do that in my life. Will I do that? That's our choice today. What choice do you make? Father, I pray your blessing on each and every one of us today. God, that you give us your strength, give us your purpose, your passion, reignited in us today. To help us not to waver back and forth, not to sit around and complain in our own misery, but God, to stand up and do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. In the name of Jesus. Before we go today, Seth, I'm going to have you take my seat to the back. Carry me out there. Before we do that, go ahead and grab that. Before we do that, we have a few kids. How many kids do we have? 4 sponsors. What's that called? $75 to send a kid to camp. I got 4 kids that need to go to camp. If you would, every head bowed, every eye closed.
70.
Huh? 75 each. If you would give a sponsor one of those kids, would you raise your hand this morning? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, you got 7. All right. You guys have raised your hands. Ollie didn't see you. I did, so make sure you go tell her. And if you have any ideas for those kids that you sponsor, you need to get to her. Let her know that. All right. God bless you. Have a great day. Love you all. Thank you again for your prayers.
Yeah. Speaking of Eli's voice, I don't know if it sounds great. So weird. It's got rain. Gorgeous. Yeah.